I'd like to hope that final mix is Glenn, Flores, McCown. I'm assuming Rex is going to be in it, and I'm assuming a name that we don't like is probably going to be in it. It's probably going to be Nagy or Smith, depending on who the GM pick is. And let's close with this, because we got to talk about GM, because in a non-Vrabel world, usually you would hire the GM first, and the GM would have a large say on the head coach. Now, the Jets have quietly got a lot of requests in for GM interviews, and the list, pretty encouraging, I would say, right? They got Borgonzi, they got Greenberg, who we've talked about a little bit. They've reached into the Eagles organization.
Yeah, Alec Halaby,
which is a name that I think has turned a couple of heads, have been like, oh, that's interesting. Poking around the Bengals organization for an interview. We know the ones that they've done already with Dimitroff and John Robinson and Nagy and all the other guys who are out of the league. Who has caught your eye? I know we've talked about Borgonzi a decent amount in this podcast, and it always catches my eyes when Samini, who's been around the longest, makes a prediction, and his early prediction was Glenn and Borgonzi. And I was like, yeah, that's like kind of be a pretty nice duo if they could do that.
Be great.
Because Borgonzi's been one of those names. He reminds me a little bit of like DaCosta, where every cycle it's like, this is the guy from the organization you take, and like you never get him, you never get him, you never get him. And it seems like this might be the cycle he's ready to take the jump. What do you think of the GM names? And what do you know of some of the names that, I mean, let's be honest, Jet fans, some of these names you're seeing for the first time. So who are some of the ones that kind of bubble to the top for you that you're like, oh, that's really particularly interesting?
Yeah, he stood out to me because, one, the three guys I thought were the most qualified coming into this cycle as potential first-time GMs was Borgonzi. Been with the Chiefs 16 years. He's done every job under the sun over there. Pro scouting, college scouting, budget managing, like all these different things. And he's been the assistant GM now for 3 years, where it's like, okay, you're alongside the hip of Brett Veach, where you're a part of every massive decision for this organization with him and Andy Reid. Like, you are helping run drafts, helping run free agencies, dealing with street free agency, waiver wires. Same for, in my opinion, Nolan Teasley from the Seahawks, who's been with that organization for a while, a guy that's highly regarded. He's been with the Seahawks 12 years, another assistant general manager. He's handled a ton of different jobs over there. He has a really good reputation as a scout and has pro and college experience. And then you look at Ray Agnew from the Lions, because he had, big front office experience with the Rams before being the assistant GM of the Lions. And he was an integral part of the Lions rebuilding both their offensive and defensive lines. And his son's been a scout with the Jets for many years. So I thought those three guys were the most qualified to be first-time GMs. And the good news is the Jets got an interview with Borgonzi, which I wouldn't think was a lock, by the way. You got to realize GMs are even sometimes more picky than coaches, because you really get one crack at the thing. And if it doesn't go so well, that's it. So that's why Borgonzi's been really patient throughout this. But he is a guy from the Northeast. Maybe this is a scenario where he looks at it and go, okay, I've been in Kansas City 16 years. Maybe I want to go closer to home, get the GM chair, get it with a clean slate, which is in this NFL landscape. My goodness, how hard is that to find? These teams are out of control with their timelines being totally screwed up. It's good to see the Jets having both spots open, or at least have the conversation. So Halaby, a guy I know less about from personal connections, but what I do know from them is obviously very, very smart. His background, very forward thinking, an analytical mind. With the Eagles, it's not as clear as day. Howie is so in control over there, where I think with the Chiefs, it's a little bit more of an open operation at times. Andy Reid obviously has a lot of control, but Andy trusts his top guys to get the personnel decisions right. And that's Veach and then Borgonzi. With the Eagles, I'm just not sure. And we just went through this with Joe Douglas, by the way, who got a lot of credit for all the Eagles' great successes. And,
built up their trenches.
Yeah. So you kind of see how that can trick you. So Borgonzi, I think, is the best name on the Jets interview list. Halaby's a solid one. And then it's, full transparency, not a lot of things that get you too excited. A lot of guys that'd be getting
You're not excited about Ryan Grigson?
Right, exactly. So Ryan Grigson, who was the Colts fan base number one enemy, really still is to this day. Brian Gain, who I get it, like longtime scout and got really ran out of Houston poorly, but they're not somebody that I find overly inspiring in that chair. I'm more of a fan of giving somebody new a chance. The only, candidate that was not on this list, but I could have talked myself into is John Dorsey, because I think he's been good at the job. He's just bounced around, but he's been very good at the job from drafting. So Borgonzi is, I would be pleasantly surprised if the Jets got that one over the finish line. Like, that's a name that I would call a pretty no-brainer top 3, and I would say top 2 GM candidate going into this cycle, and has been on the radar for years now. And that'd be really promising. And I'm not convinced Borgonzi only comes here if Matt Nagy comes with him. Like, that seems utterly ridiculous in my opinion.
Yeah. Borgonzi, again, he has that DaCosta where, like, he's been talked about for a few cycles. It's impossible to know exactly who's doing every little thing at the Chiefs, but that's a very credible hire. Also, shout out last name, a lot of vowels in it. We love to see that coming back to the Northeast as well.
And Veach is, he's capped. He's maxed out now.
Yeah.
Veach is 47. He's Andy's guy. He's not going anywhere. So Borgonzi, if he's got to go be a GM somewhere else if that's what he aspires to be.
I find it hard. If the Jets could pull that, I don't know how you criticize that. As a fan, as a national media member, as a local media member, like, what else are you expecting or looking for than being able to land that guy? And if they could do that, and again, I don't know if it's going to come before or after the head coach. It's still very unclear how the Jets are going to handle the cadence of everything here and what the reporting structure is going to be. But man, you get him and you get one of the 3 or 4 head coaches we just talked about, really the 3 that we seem genuinely excited about at this point in the post-Vrabel world. I think you could have something there. And I would, again, this is going to be still a process for the Jets, right? There's going to be a lot of leaks, a lot of stories, a lot of people pushing the agenda of their candidates. Try to just
be careful.
Follow Andy in the Discord, the list of everything, so you can keep track of it. Vent it out in the general chat and just be a little patient. I don't think this is going to, I never say never, but I don't think this is going to happen like tomorrow or the day after. Expect Vrabel to get hired by the Patriots this weekend. Expect all of Jets Twitter to freak out a little bit. You turn the page, you move on to the next phase of the process, where ideally it's that the Jets are down to their final few candidates. It's Aaron Glenn, Brian Flores, Josh McCown, and Rex Ryan. That's roughly what I honestly expect it to be. Something like that, and maybe a 5th name that we're like, oh, okay. And then after that, maybe one more week, and it goes concurrently with the GM search, and we
try to find pairings.
Try to find pairings. I don't know how they're framing these interviews, where when Borgonzi sits down, is it like, well, who do you want to have as the head coach? Who do you envision? How do you envision the staff coming together? We don't know that. Hopefully more of that starts to come out a little bit. But I think, like you said, we don't have to assume just because they're in the same organization, Borgonzi is going to demand they hire a Chiefs coach. I'm sure he knows who Aaron Glenn and Brian Flores are and has feelings about their abilities to be a head coach. And there's no reason that kind of match couldn't work. And still, to the Jets' advantage, the same timelines, which not every franchise that is searching for a head coach has right now, is to their benefit, because you do have a little bit more of a runway to properly build things together. And, they haven't been quite as chaotic. The Raiders just firing Pierce now, a few days later, the Patriots with how they've handled everything, the Giants with Mara's press conference. I don't know. A lot of teams are all over the place right now, is what I'm saying.
How about the Titans?
Titans, man, I don't even touch the Titans. I mean, the Titans have the first pick, but of all the years to have the first pick, is this a year that makes that such an appealing job? I'm not really sure.
No.
We're going to save all the draft chatter for War Room. We're going to go through the updated final, where the final pick landed, number 7. And what that means, we'll also answer some of your Discord questions. Feed, as you can see, is humming. So check back tomorrow, AM, for War Room, and more content throughout the rest of the week into the weekend. Streets of Fire draws near, February 10th premiere. Live show tickets for sale within the next month or so, but circle on your calendar, April 11th. We're telling you right now, it's April 11th. We're telling you right now, it's New York City. So don't say we didn't warn you. Get it on the calendar. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Try to keep the sanity. It's only Tuesday. There's going to be more news. The leaks are coming. Thank you, and we will talk to you soon.